For those of you just joining us, we're still waiting for one more member of the Neighborhood Advisory Board. Thanks for your patience. We're still just waiting on one more member. Okay, Mike, ready for you.
Welcome to the Ward 1 Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting for Monday, April 11th. Can I get a roll call?
Mike Ginsburg.
Here.
Valerie Lovett.
Here.
Nikhil Daffery. Justin M. Ross.
Here.
Megan E. Starrick. Jerry F. Taylor. Rhonda M. Thiessen.
Here.
Jerry L. Wager.
Here.
Carla Warninghouse.
Here remotely.
Okay, and then we have Councilmember Breckus here as well as myself.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item A2, public comment. This is for either public comment on any action item or any general public comment. It is limited to no more than 3 minutes for each public. Have any public comment?
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started with the in-person public comment. So it looks like this is specific to an agenda item. Does anyone else have comments that are in person? That are general in nature?
Wait, no, his is for an item. I thought.
Yeah, this is right.
Yeah, no.
And what is this? Yeah.
Comment for right now.
Yeah, so I think Beth Dory would like to speak. Is that you?
I'm Beth Dory.
Would you mind coming over here for a digital audience?
Well, you're half hidden anyway.
It's easier to access and some of our board members.
Okay. I watched today's affordable housing, and it was really informative. And I noticed that the ADU situation is coming up again. And I was completely opposed 3 or 4 years, but now I've softened. But I have noticed that the city of Reno has not done the proper infrastructure to support this added density in some of our older neighborhoods. One thing is that in many properties in Midtown, we don't even have gas lines. We're still on oil heat. And people have converted their oil furnaces to propane, which has created a danger in a high-density neighborhood. Many times they've done it without permits. So we have propane tanks in Midtown, high-density areas. In the Steamboat Ditch area, there's still septic systems. And so to increase the density in that neighborhood, when there's just septic systems and leach fields draining into our ditch, is not really sustainable. So I think the city needs to sewer lines through some of these older neighborhoods by the Steamboat Ditch. I think they also have to be wary of flooding, because if you increase the impervious surfaces, the water has to go somewhere. And so they've got to be cognizant of that. And some neighborhoods or some people live in PUDs. I don't think they should be exempt from having to withstand or the increased density. So that's about it. Oh, also the city of Reno right now currently does not have a requirement to put to require people to have a survey before they add on to their home. And if you're going to put an ADU in your backyard, you should be required to do a survey to make sure that you're not encroaching on your neighbor's easement. Thank you.
This one is also specific to an item. Is that correct, Sam? Yeah. Okay, I think that's it for in-person public comment.
Thank you. My name is Nancy Gilbert. It's regarding agenda item B52, expansion of the Woodland Museum of Art. The requested board members embrace the overall vision of the Woodland Museum of Art's expansion while allowing us to move the historic Sailing Mansion next to the Truckee River for the betterment of downtown Reno. Back in 2001, David Walker of the Woodland Museum of Art offered ourselves and TFP Construction the Sailing Mansion to be relocated from 448 Hill Street. Attached is a photo, which I think I've sent out to some of the members, and I have extra copies. It's a historic, the mansion has a historical significance in Reno, and we have been working to save it from being demolished when the museum expands its footprint, starting in April of 2023. Demolishing a historic mansion would not bode well for the citizens who want to retain Reno's history. We look to restore it and also have it recognized as a National Register of Historic Places. It's stunning inside. Because of the size of the first floor footprint, which is 80 by 65 feet, we had spent numerous months exploring potential lots that would house the structure for recent restoration. Yeah, there's very few lots in Reno. The most viable lot is on Zero Riverside, at or near the intersection of the Blue Street Bridge. In November of 2021, we contacted the city to submit our letter of interest in the parcel to move the Sinai Mansion. We did so with the vision of saving and restoring the mansion, but also creating open spaces, open raised outdoor patios extending from the mansion, a glass gazebo, a sitting area, coffee shop, amphitheater, hopefully a restaurant, bar, and coffee shops, and an amphitheater for kids for movies, movie night on the river, by the river. So we hope that the city of Reno and also Ward 1 embraces the Nevada Museum of Art's expansion with hopes that they'll allow us to move the mansion to that location and not demolish the structure. Thank you. Just the copies. Let's see, I think I got. This is the original mansion, the history of the mansion. Hi, Mark. How are you? Sorry, nice to see you. Oh, no. And also the layout for the Zero River side.
I got one.
And for those of you attending virtually, this will be updated on the agenda packet, so you can look at it afterwards with the presentation that Nancy had.
Any other public comment that you see? We're going to move on to Lieutenant Peterson, police department to do his crime statistics. Since it's not an agenda item, we'll have to do it during public comment.
Hi, Matthew Peterson, Reno Police Department. In my 24th year with the department. I wanted specifically to look at Ward 1, the statistics I had going back through March. Pretty consistent for everything to remain closely the same from commercial burglary, destruction of property, residential burglary. One that pointed out that was good was robberies were down to 0, the award, which of course is a good thing, and residential burglary did go down. One of the ones that did pop up, about tripled in it, was vehicle burglary. So of course, I'd like to remind everybody about different things for not leaving the valuables in your car, locking your car, lights, that type of thing. But then secondary was crimes against person. And going over the statistics and what I had with the assaults, aggravated assaults, something that really jumped out to me were 4 different instances in the month, road rage events where something facilitated between an argument between 2 people involving at least 1 or more vehicles, resulting in violence between the separated parties. So of course, actively investigating all those, but I mean, a topic of conversation would be, everybody's aggravation and upsetness with different things going on in the world, and trying to avoid that type of conflict. So that was really the big one that stuck out with statistics. And then the second thing I had was the regional gang unit was very proactive here recently, conducting a suppression for 2 different gangs that were heavily involved in violence against each other. And after that 6-day suppression, they had conducted 18 arrests, with 16 of those being felony, and conducted 26 gang field interviews and 7 parental contacts, trying to keep children, remove children from that aspect of it, getting in with the parents and offering resources to that. So 2 shootings were suspects were arrested for 2 separate shootings that they had not arrested for based on that suppression. So those were both a big win from the shooting at Smith Ridge Park Apartments and also Wilkinson Park, where the victim was left paralyzed. So that's good news for the gang unit and the citizens trying to take care of that and stop that from happening in the future.
Anybody have any questions? That was, thanks for your time.
Great, yeah, great
Thank you.
report on the road rage incident.
I will
Appreciate you.
bring traffic next time.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good,
Let's move on to item A3, approval of tonight's agenda.
We should give them a chance to comment virtually. We have about 20 people that have joined us.
oh, yeah.
Virtually, people that are on the Zoom,
Oh, I
yeah.
know, you had already given me all the comment.
Are there any questions from the general public on the Zoom? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. We can move on. I just wanted to make sure we got that out.
Okay. Item A3, approval of tonight's agenda. Has everybody had a chance to review?
With the understanding we're taking B.5.1 off the agenda.
Yes, that's correct.
With that change, I move to approve the agenda.
You have a second?
I'll second. And I don't mean to call anyone out, but if we could just speak up a little bit.
Yes.
I'll make the Zoom thing. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, that passes.
Oh, Valerie, is that you voting? I think her hand raised was her vote.
Yes.
Yes, sorry. I thought it would be handier than saying aye.
I agree.
All right, move on to item A4, approval of the minutes from the January 31st, 2022 meeting and March 14th, 2022 meeting. So we'll start with January 31st, 2022. Has everybody had a chance to review those? We have a motion to approve.
Just one comment. Occasionally, my name is misspelled. It's no big deal.
Do it.
It's THEISEN.
EI, okay,
Yes,
thank you, I'll take care of it.
I appreciate that.
Thank
Other
you.
than that, I move that we accept the minutes for January 31st.
We have a second.
I'll second.
You all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? See that right? All right, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from March 14th, 2020. Any corrections other than this?
I'm so sorry.
So we'll need a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed or you're approving?
Jeez.
He was approving.
I was just a delay, so. I just want to verify. All right, so we've got those done. We're going to move on to item A5, council liaison.
Alrighty, so starting with citywide issues. I appreciate Ms. Dory coming, talk about our council workshop today. The second of two meetings the mayor's had on talk about affordable housing and how to tackle that difficult issue. And it was a good discussion today. And I think we're moving in the right direction. I do appreciate her calling out some of the points that I brought out, that really infrastructure planning is probably more important than zoning and density and numbers in this. It really is the key. And we spend too much time at the city of Reno in all aspects discussing zoning and what a land use is, and not enough time talking about how to get infrastructure to advance the community's needs. And some of that's because we have this odd, all these special agencies and they're not really coordinated. But that's a big implementation issue. The city is in the middle of budget season, and a budget workshops were held for 3 days, 2 weeks ago. The manager has his direction to send down a tentative budget to the Carson City. That's a requirement under state law. And then we get another crack at it the first week in May. It's not looking like a terrible budget, but fiscal prudency, holding on the line on too much growth to ensure stability for economic development until times is a very important thing for us to do. But the federal money that came in for COVID relief is really giving us some good breathing room that we need, in addition to growth in revenues. But growth in revenues is also hand in hand with growth in service demands. So that's kind of a wash there. But budget is underway. That's one of the two most important things we do as a city council each year. I want to talk a little bit about Jacobs land development. I understand, and I don't focus too much on planning commission and city council appeals. They hit us when they hit us. They're kind of on their own time frame. But I guess the Glow Plaza went to the city planning commission, and there were a couple appeals coming, and that's going to come before the council fairly soon. Those are usually at a 6 p.m. hearing. And so I'll be looking for that because it is in Ward 1. It's that Glow Plaza that Jacobs had as part of their development. It was an improvement, but is also, embedded also in their development agreement. I've been fielding comments this week from the Catholic Church about the parking lot that used to be the public lot next to the Stevenson building that used to be owned by the university, and they had the OLLI programs there. That lot, the council did decide, I didn't support that, to sell that lot to Jacobs, but they acquired it some time ago, but they just fenced it. And so a lot of people are going for, Holy Week services, and, kind of coincides with the loss of a public parking lot. And that's a tough one. So if anyone's listening and you're looking to go downtown for services this week, give yourself extra time to find some street parking. And then the one thing that's really focusing in Ward 1 right now is all the street construction projects. We've had a lot of discussion here about the Humboldt one, the Humboldt area one, the Old Southwest one. That one's moving along pretty well and doing well. And then the area that we annexed into, the Virginia Lake area, is also having some road construction projects. That one is rather complicated because it involves the replacement of some tumble lines, so a lot of excavation. It's going to be phased, but there was some concern coming out of the one that looked like the easiest to do, which was around Swope Middle School. And if there's any folks on the line listening in, we've talked to Public Works late last week, and they should be going out and talking to those property owners who have concerns about the way their property, whether it's their landscaping or their driveway, is going to edge up to the reconstructed grade of the, the public infrastructure. And when we went out there, my impression was, it does look like there's going to be issues, but sometimes it also looks like when you go out there, things mid-project look like they're like, how is this going to work? And they do. So we don't know. We just do know that there was not as much advanced discussions with the neighborhoods as some of the others, because I think there was a perception it was going to be an easier one. And maybe that's not turning out. But also the Public Works Department has been, it's gotten their attention, and their project manager, I understand, was going to spend more time out there. So if anyone has any follow-up they want to give to me on that, do, because I'll convey that. And then also, very exciting, the council did confirm the next time the street projects will come into Ward 1, which I think will be 24, because there's a lot of lead time on those. And it's going to be the Marsh Palisade area. And in particular, that area of marsh that functions as a collector from Newland Circle to where it splits with Sharon, which is kind of a falling apart road. A lot of people use it, and undersized and not with a lot of pedestrian connections. And then also up at Mount Rose and Sharon also, where there's inadequate pedestrian infrastructure. So it's going to be exciting to see them go into the Marsh Palisade area in 24. And also there's some intertie issues with the sanitary sewer and the sewer system there that'll be addressed. So that planning is in the works. And we have a lot. I'm really excited about this agenda today because it seems like we're tackling neighborhood issues that have popped up, and we're able to timely discuss those. So if I didn't talk about something, it's because it's going to be on the agenda, and I look forward to those discussions. Does anyone have any questions for me about any of the issues that I brought up, or anything else? Okay. Thank you very much. And I'll be doing my May tour, I think, the second week in May. And so if anyone wants to, has anything that they think we need to go out and look at, I'm happy to do that. And I know, Jerry, you wanted me to come walk with you, so we'll put that on first hour of the tour. So,
Thank you.
okay, you bet.
Move on to item A6, staff liaison.
Okay, I think Jenny covered most things, but I did want to remind the NAB that on April 16th, this Saturday, we are having the Ward 1 neighborhood cleanup, and that's going to be at the Virginia Lake Park. So that will have, I think, about 4 dumpsters. And if you are able to come and volunteer and help people get rid of some trash, that'd be greatly appreciated. But those will be donated from Councilmember Brex's allotted dumpsters.
That from 9 to 12?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to the business items. So B1, discussion on work being done at Rosewood Canyon and Steamboat Ditch.
Okay, I guess that's me. So maybe 3 weeks ago, was it maybe 4 weeks ago? Got a whole
March
lot.
23rd.
Was it March 23rd? Got a whole lot of input on work going on up at Rosewood Canyon with, and also Steamboat Ditch. And a lot of questions came up. So I tried to, concerns were raised too, tried to look into, what's going on and really understand if it was 2 efforts or 1 effort, because we're all accustomed to the ditch company doing, ditch readiness for when they open up the water, the gates for the diversion. We know that they go out there yearly, and we also know that the city has a contract to assist in their work in understanding that the ditches, while they're 19th century creations for irrigation and our agricultural past, they also are stormwater conveyances. And that's why the city when I came on Bob Cashell's council, stepped up to help the ditch companies with their work. And that agreement continues today. And then we also knew that Rosewood Canyon received some fuel mitigation efforts last year, the goats, and some attention as focused to the Pine Haven fire, which showed just how quickly and exposed that neighborhood is when it, crossed over McCarran from where it started back in November of 2020. Well, they are two separate efforts that were going on pretty much in the same area, and they're pretty aggressive when you look to see what exactly is going on. Tomorrow, I'm going to be walking this Steamboat Ditch corridor with the Public Works Director and the new ditch master, if you will. He's like the person hired by the ditch company, to look at the work that they've done, ensure that it is safe, that it was respecting any requirements that they would have for federal compliance with areas that may be protected. There's some thinking that there might be some areas, but not definitively at one spot. And then, in terms of their cleanup too, to make sure it's they're not leaving fuels behind that could also be a fire threat. And then also to look at, tire tracks through the easement to see if those are, how they leave the ditch, the trail, if you will. So I'm doing that tomorrow with Public Works and the ditch master. And then the Rosewood Canyon work, the fire marshal, who has been the project manager from the city, did write a rather lengthy memo that is in the packets.
That's available digitally. for
It's
anyone.
available digitally. And he explained the work, explained the best practices that they've used, had even recent comment from wildlife people, because it is a state grant. There was a lot more compliance that was needed in terms of the grant terms. And so, I'll let people read that. And if they have any questions on that, we're here to answer them or ask the fire marshal to respond. I don't think he's online though, huh?
Does not appear he is.
Okay.
So we just have the memo.
Yeah, so the memo basically said that, it looks like a lot of work was done, but it is the work that is necessary to, achieve the goals, and to some degree that it gives the opportunity for wildlife and habitat to restore itself. So that's, I don't know, and we'll take public comment then on this if anyone has any comments. Has everyone, did we make those available for people who walked in, the memo from the?
It's all part of the agenda packet.
Okay.
Is over there.
Oh, there's packets over there?
Yes,
Yeah,
right next to
yeah.
it. It's sanitized.
Yeah, and we could, yeah,
I got it.
yeah.
So any board questions? Kurt? Well, I start with you next. Anybody on? board? Valerie or Carla, do they have any questions first, and we're going to want the public. So. Seeing none?
No, I'm good.
My name is Jim Nevlin. I live on San Antonio Court. Rosewood Canyon Lower is right behind my house, to the east and on the west side of the canyon. Question I got is for the section M of the lower Rosewood Canyon, which is on the east side. The specifications say that should be done manually. It was not done manually. I did provide photos to your office through Jerry that shows the masticator way up high on the hill. And then Sunday, I took some additional pictures, and you can actually see 22 different tracks going uphill that to me have not been, as it falls forward in the erosion part of the specifications, rehab. So the question I've got, since it was done by mechanics, by machinery, did the contractor ask the city and get approval from the city to do it by machinery as opposed to by hand? If it was done, if it was asked, who granted the permission and why did they grant permission when it was not in line with what the specification called for?
That's great. We'll follow up on that. I know that the initial inquiry we had was that there was some mechanical coursing of the canyon that should not have occurred. And do you remember that, Nick?
I remember someone writing it about that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
no, I think it was confirmed by staff, actually.
Got it.
So we'll follow up with that. But when you say the Lower Roseman and you said area M, was that in the
So go-
plan? In the plan?
It's in the scope of work.
In the
It's
scope of
work.
the contract?
It's
Okay.
attachment A of the
Okay.
contract, and there are diagrams, pictures.
Okay,
The three sections are the Rosewood Wash area, upper.
yeah.
So section M is the green section, which is on the east side of the lower portion of the Rosewood. Canyon.
Okay, east side lower portion, okay.
And Dominic, my neighbor, who's next door, right next to me here, has more information about what was done in the upper part of the
Okay.
lower section
Okay,
that I don't have.
okay. Well, we will follow up with that particular spot.
It says, the focus is on removal of dead and dying vegetation. Is that what you saw out there? Not at all. So they're taking down live.
It's difficult to see what's alive in February.
Pardon?
It's difficult to see what is alive in February. There's not much.
Well, once,
sprouting.
yeah, once they cut it, I mean, you could look at the stems and stuff like that, you know. So they're taking a lot of material out besides dead and dying.
The scope says that they're gonna take 50% of the vegetation out. So
Oh,
it clearly states that, so they are allowed to take live out as well. I'd like to speak on.
Go ahead and state your name there.
Dominic Adams, I live on Pagadar, at the top of the canyon. So I'm just keeping these comments to the Rosewood Canyon. I talked to Trey, the fire marshal, and you know, he's the oversight person on this. I kind of think there's a little conflict of interest, and I appreciate everything the fire department does, and I understand the need to remove dead brush out of there. But we need someone from public works should be overseeing this, not someone working to remove the dead brush. I understand the hazards of fire in that canyon, and we've seen a house burn down in the 25 years I've lived in that canyon. I understand that that is an utmost concern, but that canyon, since I've lived there in many generations before me, people know there are coyotes that live in there. We're not talking about a lone coyote that we see all over town. This is dens of coyotes, and this is where they come from. I know a lot of people don't like coyotes, but they've been there before us people have. They're one of the few areas that coyotes inside the McCarran Circle. I talked to Trey, the fire marshal, about this, and they kind of poo-pooed me on this. I said, there's dens down there. I can show you where they are. They have excavation tracks, and I'd be happy to show anyone down here. Within 5 feet of the coyote den, the coyotes have not been there since. We've driven the coyotes out. Now, that's one of the many wildlife that live down there. Many neighbors have spotted bobcat down there. My wife and I, Janine, have seen bears roaming down there for 45 minutes, watching laying in the flowers down there. It's a common area for bears to frequent. And on occasion, we have seen deer. It's not as common because of coyotes. Now, the problem I have is, if you look at the scope of work, it says that they're to cut this stuff out in a mosaic pattern. They cut roads right through there. It's not a mosaic pattern. When the scope of work calls for them to bring the chipper down there and remove this, and the dead brush, they're supposed to put through the chipper. They did not do that. They used their excavating machine that just tears and just the masticator, thank you. And it just leaves chunks of wood down there. The fuel is just sitting there. Instead of an upright position, it is down. They're not supposed to be in the repairing way. The repairing way is the water banks. They've cut all that dead brush. And if you look at the scope of work that it says, unless I'm reading this wrong, and I could be, it says not to treat the bottom of the canyon. It clearly says it, not to treat the bottom of the canyon. They went in there and they removed all the dead willows. That's where this bobcat lives that I've yet to see. But they hide in these thickets. So again, we just don't have the right people in there overseeing this. If you read the scope of work, it says that they are to come in from Patadar Drive to keep the erosion control down, because that's a less steep way. Well, they dropped in from Cashel Boulevard and I have photos of this, with a 60% slope of their excavator going straight down that hill. Please take a look at that. Why did they do that? Because it was easy for them? Well, why did we choose this contractor over another contractor? When you have a scope of work, now I'm a general contractor, so I understand scopes, and everyone has to follow the same scope. That's why we have these scopes to bid on these jobs. I don't understand how you can pay this person at the end of his contract when he didn't follow the scope of work. Why did he come in off from Cashel Drive? Was it cheaper, faster, easier? I don't understand how you can jump outside the scope of work. I don't understand how I've asked repeatedly why we weren't notified. We went to a meeting in 2012 about this project, and this is 2022, and none of the neighbors, not just me, none of the neighbors were notified that this was going to go on, and we weren't informed about how they came about this. There's supposed to be an archaeological study on that area. I've asked repeatedly what happened to that archaeological study. Haven't seen it. And the only report I've seen with anything that said forestry on it is something from High Sierra Forestry, which is a one-person operation. I don't know how the city found this person. I don't know what his credentials are, but he wrote out the report for this. So those are some of my complaints. I really don't think they've done a good job down there. I know they've removed the brush. To the fire marshal's credit, I'm really concerned with the wildlife and with climate change now. I don't think this thing is just going to come back immediately like everyone's saying. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your other
Jerry.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious here on the page 2, number 2, it says, how do you return soil to a natural elevation after it's been compacted by heavy equipment? Can you explain that to me?
Store.
How do you do that?
Okay, post compaction, okay,
great question.
yeah.
Well, Jen's meeting was set.
Well, no, that's the
Yeah,
STEMA.
but you can kind of look
Yeah.
and see what's going on.
No, what I will do, because we did get the marshal did write his comments and, he's not here tonight. I'll take all the comments and I'll take the scope and I'll write notes on the scope that I hear tonight. And I will submit those to the city manager and I'll ask him to have answers for him. And I'll also ask him for the opportunity to do a removed third-party evaluation of the work product. It's pretty new for us. I've had my thoughts whether or not the fire marshal's the appropriate person to manage it myself, but I kind of think that that's the way it's going around the country, is the fire managers are the ones who are more, managing fuel mitigations, but, they got to do it with the right, approaches. So, we'll do that. And the notification, we had items come to the council agenda, but maybe we do need to make sure that this is the spot for, certainly the neighborhood advisory boards play the role of the notification.
And this is a good place just to voice
Yeah.
concerns. And
Yeah.
then you can take
Yeah.
them back, but
Yeah.
we're not making any decisions tonight on anything. So you have another?
Yes, this is of the two points that Ms. Brackett brought up, SCIC and erosion mitigation, two separate contracts. two separate scopes of work.
SCIC was the,
Steamboat ditch.
yeah, that's a completely different one,
Okay.
yeah.
So when Dominic and I were meeting with the fire marshal, Trey Palmer, on the first, I think it was the 1st of April, we were talking about masticator that came through, I mean, a huge one. And just, it's the first time, I've lived here for 17, 18 years, and it's the first time I've seen a masticator come straight down the ditch and do the off-road ditch side, the ditch between the ditch and the road, and then onto the roadside, and just, you know, chips, big chips like that, just left. The thing that I mentioned, people that drive up and down McCarran, where the Pennington property is. If you notice, that's a good area where you can see year after year after year of just accumulated fuel that the steamboat ditch company cuts and throws on the downhill side of the ditch road. That has never been cleaned up. And I specifically pointed that out to Mr. Palmer, Fire Marshal Palmer, and he was going to take a look at it. So that's something else, Ms. Parker said, I hope you can take a look at with your public works people.
Yeah, okay. And Nick, will you print out a copy of the scope for the,
Yep.
and put it on my desk, and then I'll, when I go in on Wednesday, I'll do that. And maybe we should just have this come back on the agenda next.
All right, we're gonna go down to Jerry.
Yeah, I really think that we need at some point in time to have a larger discussion on the ditches, the habitat around them, the importance to open space, the trails. I think that's, you know, the city doesn't necessarily treat these resources as a natural environment or an open space environment. And with the proposal to enhance the stormwater program, put more money into it, the ditches are a big part of that. And it would be nice to develop some criteria vis-a-vis the ditches, the open space associated with them, so that we don't continue to do more damage to it. I mean, these ditches have morphed into something entirely different than what they were originally constructed for. Certainly, if we look at stormwater in particular.
Yeah, you know, the stormwater utility effort, I think, is in part a solution to the ditches. I mean, it absolutely is, getting that funding source and so on. But it's interesting, I was visiting my parents this weekend in the Bay Area, and I was walking somewhere and it said the stormwater and open space utility, you know, merged as one entity. And I thought, how did they do that? Probably a voter initiative. The council has the ability to do the stormwater utility, but I've never seen it presented as an agency of one dual purpose. You know, we know they have both purposes, but anyway, thanks, Jerry, for that.
We have a comment over here. Go ahead and state your name.
Nancy Gilbert. I just want to caution the gentleman over here talked about a debris being thrown in the ditch. In 2005, I sued the city of Reno on the Pine Ridge Last Chance ditch and the Last Chance ditch company, because they were throwing all the debris in the ditch. If you remember, behind Pine Ridge, there's a dogleg turn, and all the debris basically backed up and flooded all homes. So one of the big issues is, if you're going to clean up around the ditch, make sure they're getting all the willow branches and everything out, because it does flood people. And so that was, just want to put it out there. That's a huge issue.
Thank you. Any other comment?
I'll promote them, but we do have someone virtually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just making sure you saw it. Okay, it looks like we have a comment from Garrett Brothers. Garrett, I'm going to allow you to speak now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just had a question regarding this, because looking at the map that the fire marshal put out, so I live not in that section, so I know that it was, you know, beyond all of that. So can we get an answer on, you know, why they went above and beyond? And specifically, so those three canyons are all city property, so that makes sense. But the section I'm at is all private property. And so obviously the steamboat has an easement, but the steamboat wasn't the one that was doing this mitigation. It was the Eureka Mill. So I'm just curious how they were able to, or why they went beyond the 3 canyons that the fire marshal's discussing here. And to the point that I know specifically, because it's my neighbor's property and my neighborhood's property, those were certainly not dead willows. Those were all live vegetation. So there's a disconnect between what I'm seeing on here about city property and fuel mitigation and what's actually happening to private property and an easement that I still have not seen anything that shows the city has an easement to it, which is who's doing this work here. But I also haven't seen a steamboat easement. So I think it would be great if we could get some clarity as to really what this easement that the steamboat throws around, because everybody I've ever spoke to, it's very generic and it's just known that they have an easement. But I actually haven't seen anything on a parcel map that explicitly states what my rights are as, a property owner and what the rights are of the ditch company with their easement and the implicit easement that the city has for stormwater transportation.
Thank you. Any other comment?
Okay, no more comments on Zoom.
All right, well, thank you for the presentation. We're going to move on to item B2, presentation discussion on the regional street naming committee recommendation, naming an unnamed alley to Midtown Alley encompassed by St. Lawrence Avenue, Reno Avenue, Plymouth Street, and Humboldt Street pursuant to the Regional Street Naming Committee manual. This is for information only. Okay.
Yeah, so if you go back to maybe 2019, maybe 2020, there was some discussion about renaming parks, renaming neighborhoods, renaming in general. And there was an effort started off by staff. They had a number of meetings with different stakeholders like the Human Rights Commission, the Historic Resources Commission. I think there were a couple other meetings to talk about, what should be our process for renaming things when requests come. And it kind of was an effort that basically did not thrive, did not progress anywhere. And the Historic Resources Commission, of which I'm the liaison, absolutely wants that issue brought up. They did their strategic plan. They want there to be some parameters for how the city is going to go about renaming things. And I've been trying to get the city manager to dedicate the resources and the focus to that, but he has not yet. But in the meantime, we've had some naming and renaming efforts come through to the council for the natural process of renaming and naming streets. The first was about 6 months ago. President Sandoval asked to rename a portion of Center Street to University Way. And, lo and behold, he was told one thing by staff to go do and go through this technical committee that's regional about naming, but it really isn't a policy-making committee, and there are no policies. So how do you go about that? And then now we have this one here in our neighborhood that actually got, just like University Way for Sandoval, got to on the council agenda without any any public involvement whatsoever. It was this obscure technical committee had a meeting on it, and the proponent of it, who is an individual with property on this alley, is here today to talk. And the outcome of the naming was, let's call it Midtown Alley. Well, actually, by the neighborhood plan for the Plumas, it's actually not in Midtown, it's in the Plumas neighborhood plan. And it's also by the map that we use here, which I don't think Nick has a copy of available. It's in what we've always called the Plumas neighborhood. So how to go about naming, the technical committee just looks and says, well, there isn't a Midtown Alley or Midtown Street, so it's okay. But it's not okay if you're trying to name things that are geographically accepted. And I would argue that it is accepted. So the question, and I think this is a case study, and part of the reason I think the whole renaming effort went away and did thrive is because no one really understood it very well. It was also in the time of naming, addressing the legacy of the past of the racist term, racism, and that sort of thing, because it was associated originally with Newlands. And there's a strong objections to a lot of people for Newlands for how he viewed repealing the right of vote to African Americans when he became a United States Senator. And so, it's charged, it's very charged in philosophy, but I think that the city was not served by not coming to some term about how to name, rename a policy. And the Historic Resource Commission that focuses very much on the history of place really wants it to be outlined as a path that these requests, whoever makes them, who is ever allowed to make them, will follow. And when this Midtown alley came up, which I do not recognize as being in Midtown, I looked at that block of the alley and I knew there was some historic significance to the land bound by this alley. And it was driving me crazy. So what I did have asked someone with a lot of historical acuity in researching was the alley is, there's a little vacant lot on the alley that backs up to this alley area, which was a very famous creamery in the Plymouth neighborhood. And Mount Rose Creamery right there on St. Lawrence. So if you had a policy, we're going to rename and name things according to, geographical acceptance, location, historical significance. You may very well say about this alley, well, let's name it Rose Creamery or Creamery Alley or something like that. But you could completely do it a different way. You could say, well, the property owner who wants it is, so-and-so, let's name it after him. And that's not an inappropriate way to name things either. You often see in new developments, areas named for the developer names them. And I've seen people name them after their kids and their family members. So anyway, there's a lot here. This is a case study. Staff is here to discuss from their perspectives of the technicals of naming. One thing I will say, because Nick's been really helpful, is the reason with this is there is reason to name alleys in this modern time, and we'll talk about that. I'm sure that others will present it. And you just don't want to name a piece of an alley and leave 4 other blocks of that alley unnamed, because you really do not want to have a name that's only for one alley and then the rest of the alley gets a different name. And unfortunately, and that was a big part of my objection to Center Street, because Center Street is now a street of continuity that has 2 different names. So anyway, that's a long intro to Kurt Dietrich, who is our, what's your title these days?
Traffic engineer.
Traffic engineer, yeah. And he brought a presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jenny, do you want me to, I have a digital copy of that map.
Oh, yeah, of our map, yeah, he'll just show, and I know when we start the maps, the first time, everyone was like, Jenny, you're obsessed with naming the neighborhoods. Why are you so obsessed with naming the neighborhoods? And it's really just a best practice. I think, my city planning background you need a common identity to help areas be understood, and you also need a common identity to talk from a point of reference for geography. And that's why when we reconvened, we came back to our naming effort, and you have that map. Do you
want me to bring up the map now?
Yeah, might as well.
Actually, can I bring it up after?
Yeah,
Just so I
that's
can
fine.
look at it.
Let's hear from Kurt.
All right, for the record, Kurt Dietrich, City Arena traffic engineer. The presentation actually prepared initially for City Council on the Midtown alley streaming approval. Next vote, that works. Thank you. Is that clear? Yes. Oh.
Not working?
Not advancing.
Oh.
Let's see. There we go. Got it. So a little history on the Regional Street Naming Committee. It's actually administered by Washington County. And it's a formed by interlocal agreement between the cities of Reno, Sparks, and unincorporated Washington County. And so the purpose of that commission is to provide street naming standards and also to avoid duplication of street names within the region. So similar sounding names, especially for emergency services, is something they want to take a look at. And the body itself is actually formed with representatives from building departments, emergency services, the post office, utilities, et cetera, as they interface addresses and need to respond appropriately. And so then the original street name committee is also the recommending body to Reno City Council, as Councilmember Burgess mentioned earlier. So here's a location map of the area. Obviously, the alley is right in the center there, and it's surrounded by St. Lawrence Avenue, Plumas, Reno, and Humboldt. As you can see there, you have several properties that are actually facing the alley there. So the applicant actually is the owner of 3 of those 5 affected properties that are located on the alley. And the applicant requested to name the alley as a way to avoid confusion with mail delivery and emergency services, as previously mentioned. And so the regional street naming committee voted unanimously to approve the street name. And I believe the second choice was Mount Rose Alley, I believe, but there was conflicts with Mount Rose Highway and Mount Rose Street. So this was, I believe, the first runner-up. And so here are some example properties on the alley. As you can see, the front porches on several of the properties actually face the alley itself, which was causing confusion. So speaking with the applicant, I guess some of the issues were pallets were actually being delivered on the street side of the address. And it was very difficult for the properties in the back to actually move some of the material. And then also I've heard that there was also trespassing issues as well, of people trying to access the alley properties from the main street. So naming the alley would present mitigation for some of those issues. And it's a very brief presentation, and this is informational only. This was just original staff recommendation to council. And if you'd like, I can just go back to the map. If you'd like.
Yes, I just need to bring it back up. Apparently it was not advancing on the Zoom.
Oh.
Any board questions?
Yeah, so anyone can ask for a rename.
That is correct. So it's actually applicant driven, the original.
Applicant driven.
It is.
Okay, so kind of went it through and the postal service, on the naming, very technical, but it's not only for mail delivery, but now everyone gets their packages through delivery, right? This is not only mail, but package delivery. And then Nick, the research you did about naming, as you see more infill, why don't you see what you did a little literature survey? Why don't you say what you found?
I don't think I'll be able to break it down as well as you did, but I just saw that some other cities had adopted some large scale policies to start renaming their alleys to avoid issues like the applicant Sam is facing. So instead of doing it a piecemeal approach, they would say, all right, we have all these unnamed alleys. And so we're going to consider naming this one Alley A, Alley B, Alley C, Alley D.
It's a good thing, because you're getting more infill and more, efficient land use, to, more housing that's smaller, that it's affordable. Wanted to present it to you because it had not gone through any kind of notification process, with the exception of, what was the notification process?
Let's see, according to the minutes of the regional street naming committee, there was no opposition through the public comment group. Actually the applicant was here that attended that meeting. But yeah, the meeting minutes suggested no opposition.
Yeah, but the notice, I think, was just that one block, but in reality, if you're down here on this block, you're in the path of becoming midtown.
Any board questions? In the audience, questions, thoughts? Go ahead and state.
I'm the applicant and I have
Could you put it back to the map? Is it possible?
It should be updating on the Zoom now.
Okay. So my name is Sam Gallo. This is one of our properties, and I do live at 776 Humboldt Street. The reason for the naming, and the only reason for the naming is to set the GPSs correctly. I did this successfully on other property we did in 2010. It's called Camden Alley, it's in Ward 1, and it resolved all the problems. So what the problems are is we don't get the mail, it gets lost, we don't get deliveries. And so in this, I live here. This is a duplex, this is a house, this is the yellow duplex you saw. What happens is with the 776, mail gets dropped here, like today, there's probably a 30-pound package that goes to the woman who moves in A. I don't know how to get that back around. This happens constantly. We have mail that's thrown around. So yes, we are in a road naming position, but this is not what I started out to be. I'm trying to get safety because we don't have 911 in the alley on the little scale. So if you have people that are gonna come into a situation, it doesn't show up on the light. So it's a safety issue. We don't get Amazon correctly. We don't get FedEx, and the worst is U-Track. So it's a constant problem. This is 735 and a half. We don't own this. She gets the same problems, 30, 40, 50 pound packages for this house. She gets delivery at the tea place, this the orange place up the street. And then 729 is a duplex. And they have this, we all have the same problem. And so 2 weeks ago, what happens is probably the worst offender is the mail department, because this is the largest route and nobody in the mail delivery wants to do it. It goes up to Gordon Street on the west. They don't have enough time because in the GPS system for the mail delivery, they don't account for the times in the alley. So you either get mail or you don't. It's never consistent. So some of the neighbors had their brokerage statements returned that were returned without permission. They have cancellations of insurance, that kind of thing. So again, I'm open for any solution to get the mail delivered, UPS, whatever it is. I frankly don't care what it's named. This is not about road naming. I don't care what you name it. This isn't about race. It's not about anything. It's about getting mail. So help us get mail. To the issue of this is only one block. You have to analyze each block. Not every block has the same problem with what this does. And the city has caused this. They've allowed, our lots are not subdivided. This is subdivided. This is subdivided. The only access to this property and to this one is in the alley. Mine are the same way. You can't get through. So consequently, that is the address. There is no other way. There are other properties that have around the whole midtown, but they have access to the front, and the mail delivery can come from the front. And so I don't know how to solve that. This is kind of the unique block, the same way Camden Alley was, and it resolved it. And so there is history with it. And that's why we went through the same course we did in 2010 to get that resolved.
Thank you. Good points, Jen.
Yeah, and I live nearby and I live on an alley. I face one street, but my side is on an alley. So I do see a lot of this and I can attest to the difficulty. I see it more on the deliveries. I think the mail route people, even though they do rotate a fair amount, they seem to do okay. It really is the delivery drivers because there's so many of them and I'm helping them all the time. You know, it's here. So I do get it. I do think we need to name, if I was to say how this policy would work, I would say that it starts with the council and the council would use certain parameters of input. And in the historic core, you might say we want a historic HRC to weigh in. And if you think this is academic and not like taking up real time, there's another one right behind this one, which is very contested. And that is another applicant came through and wanted to rename a street. I think it's called Litch Court. And they wanted to name it after a family that owns property on it or used to own property on it called Bassani, which is a painter company that's been in existence for maybe 50 years. We don't have a lot of 50-year businesses. So they asked to rename it Bassani, and it's just going to this committee with the post service people, attend, but without any input from people who care about Reno's history. And some of them are starting to say, well, let me tell you about the Litch family and how important they were for this area. And we also have someone who was owned property on the set court and was trying to weigh in and participate, and she found it very difficult to do so. So we got an even stickier one coming up, whereas this one is illustrative of a need that we have. So, it'll go to council. I would like to see it renamed to reflect the history of it, Creamery. And I'll show you why Midtown is not a good answer. Do you have that map up?
Yes.
Yeah.
These might be on, because I heard Plymouth and Midtown, and it would be nice to affirm what zone that is.
Well, this ward, this neighborhood advisory board has been working from an adopted map really since when did we first start? But the time before, 2014 or so. And this map shows, and it takes it from many years ago when the city used to do it and had a neighborhood plan, and it's still on the website as a neighborhood plan for Plymouth. Where do you have? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So Midtown was always, for this board, Midtown was always bifurcated at
Forest.
east of Plymouth. Yeah.
Forest.
East I can't tell, is it Forest or Plymouth, Nick?
I believe it's Plymouth. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, so east of Plymouth was Midtown. And Midtown is a more mixed commercial concept because it's Midtown. Plymouth was always more of a neighborhood. And that's why I think that would be a mistake to name this Midtown Alley, frankly.
Is that because it's technically in the Midtown zoning district? So you're talking about the area versus the zoning.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll work it out, but I'm glad we had this discussion here to illustrate the two issues. One, the need to address the alleys and their complexity, change character, and two, develop some policies for renaming.
All right.
Can I add, could we, I agree with you, is it possible, because what we did on Camden Alley is this one section as well, but it's a linchpin that people can work on. They can extend it. And so we need the safety, we need mail delivery. Can that process go ahead, and then whatever the naming situation is for the larger area can follow that?
I would support that, just like, you, like President Sandoval, had this idea, went through this technical committee without the bigger issues being pondering. I think I could support that, but then I would like to see an effort to rename the full alley.
Maybe a springboard for that, but you have to start somewhere.
Once you name an alley, though, it has to, and your guidelines really are continuity of a street in its functionality as a thoroughfare, right?
Yeah, that and then the similar sounding names as well.
Yeah, those are the two. So they're really technical. So I think if you do create it as Creamery Way, it would go, but that's fine. You have a very historic, significant little parcel there. If you bring it up, Nick,
You want to show, I'll show
It's
you.
not a person's name, that's what I was concerned about, because I didn't want to get into any kind of
Yeah,
diversity.
no, I think, although the HRC has not been able to tackle this, that the historic resources thinking in these older areas is to go to place in memory.
Bring back that.
Which would you like?
Yeah.
for me to
Oh,
bring
his
up?
map, Kurt's map, Kurt's map, and I'll show you where the creamery was. And I just remember this because years ago as a Mount Rose mother, when they had their 100-year celebration, I remember this coming up as a distinctive memory of people who attended Mount Rose Elementary School because they knew that there was a a little business in the neighborhood that had that relationship to, the kids and the housewives really would go. See where 222 is? See that vacant lot there?
Yes.
That's where the creamery
The
is.
vacant lot was the creamery, or that.
That's what I understand. 222,
Top one.
yeah, top level.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, and I'm surprised no one here remembers that, but it really was folks who were be more in their, older now, because I think that ad was during the war.
My dad.
Oh, is he on? Is he on? Oh, ask him.
Right, so we have, I'm gonna go to Carla was on the.
Yeah, Carly had a question. Gonna stop.
It's not so much a question, it's just, well, I also live in that Plumas area and understand all the issues with the alley. So since I raised my hand, Jenny said a lot of stuff that I would agree with. I would just ask for simple names. It's got to be done on all of the alleys. It has to be consistent. It needs to be a city and post office, sort of project. It can't be just, homeowners applying for a name for an alley. That's kind of ridiculous. So it needs to be more coordinated than that. Thank you.
It is formal.
Yeah, I just noticed when the map was up that there are two parcels on there, the creamery lot and then one across the way that are numbered 2 something something, and then the other was basic or 7 something. So presumably, in order to alleviate any confusion with deliveries and post offices, you're gonna want consistent numbers along the alley, whatever it is, that phone.
And they're ready to do that as soon as this is finalized.
But those are allied off the east-west one.
Okay.
Some are off the north-south and some are on the east-west.
Any other questions? So this was for information only, so thank you for
Now
your
you know.
time. Thank you, Mitch.
Yep, and you'll ask your dad. if
Thanks,
he
Kurt.
remembers.
Thank you.
You want this back? I put it on my computer.
Thank you, sir. So we're gonna move on to item B3, report on regional road projects that will be constructed in Ward 1 in 2022. This is for information only.
Okay, so Doug, I'm gonna promote you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
For the record, I'm Doug Malloy. I'm the engineering manager, one of the engineering managers at the city, at the RTC. I got promoted. That's awesome. Thanks, Nick. Hey, I'm pleased to present to you today just some projects that we are going to be constructing and are actually currently in construction in Ward 1. So let me switch that. Can you see the presentation all right?
Cannot see it yet.
Okay, I didn't do the share, excuse me. All right, let me try this again. Sorry about that.
There you go.
Is that the one without the, you've got the full screen, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. Again, sorry for that. So These are projects, a couple of projects that we're going to be constructing in Ward 1 this year. This slide is not a Ward 1 in Ward 1, but it's from a earlier presentation. But it does show an RTC bus stop that we're constructed on Old North Virginia. It's a good representation of a lot of the bus stops that we've been constructing in the region, including some I'm sure that are in Ward 1. So the projects in total are about $8 million worth of projects in the ward, and they include a lot of mostly reconstruction, pavement reconstruction. These two projects are pavement reconstruction. This first one is Reno Consolidated 2001. It is primarily California Avenue from Booth Street. Let me bring up my laser pointer. Booth Street over here on the right-hand side of the screen to Mayberry at Memory Lane. And then it also includes this short segment of California over to Hunter Lake. Again, it's a complete reconstruction. The project manager is Judy Tortelli. And I just wanted to point out on this slide, we earlier, about 2019, I believe we completed a project that constructed a multi-use path in addition to reconstructing the road on California up to towards Newlands Circle. So the improvements, I mentioned total reconstruction of the roadway. It's beyond the maintenance cycle. So we've got to reconstruct it and start over. Everything pretty much stays the same. However, there's quite a few improvements that we've added to this in addition to the road reconstruction, including storm drainage, bicycle and pedestrian connectivity. As I mentioned, we'll tie into the multi-use path, construct some sidewalk on the south side. We had to acquire some right-of-way and some different things that's taken a little bit to get to that point. We're widening some sidewalks, replacing some sidewalks, constructing some retaining walls to accommodate those sidewalks. In addition, there's a bus stop. We'll be improving it. And we are always putting in green pavement markings for the bike lanes. The schedule is, as I mentioned, we're under construction, should be complete in August. What you've seen, if you've driven through that area earlier, there was some utility relocation work. We had some one-way traffic through there. That is back to two-way traffic. And they're beginning to work on some curb and gutter and some other storm drainage. I want to go back just to the slide previous and show you that we are reconfiguring. This Y here is a bit problematic in its existing condition and could be improved. And we are doing a little reconfiguration to make that a safer movement through that area. Again, construction, it's granite construction, should be complete in August. And then the other project I wanted to mention is Reno Consolidated 2201. This is two roads that are basically a loop in the northwest, some off of Summit Ridge. So this is Sky Mountain and Sky Valley. Roads that are part of our, one of our bus routes serves this road. Therefore, it is a project of region on the RTC's plan. It's in very poor condition. We are again under construction as of beginning last week. And right now we have one-way traffic in a clockwise direction is my understanding. We did that to accommodate on-street parking during construction, as well as provide the bus service in that direction during construction. Our project manager is Roy Flores. So again, complete reconstruction of the road. Some of the curb ramps are being replaced. We've got the bus stop. We're going to try and we'll be constructing an ADA pad at the bus stop or bus stops. The pavement markings I mentioned, some sidewalk curb and gutter replacement where it's deteriorated. And then there were some drainage issues that we were fixing as well. Should be complete in July, and it's also granite construction. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Board questions? Any audience questions? Let's see.
Not seeing any hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Doug?
Is he doing the next one?
No, he is not.
We're gonna move on to the development project B5.
Wait, what about the roundabout?
Oh, I'm sorry. Want to back up, take that off the record, please. Let me start over. Presentation on the 4th and Woodland Roundabout project informational. I think I do.
No, it's something I've been wanting for so long. I'm not gonna let it
Okay, Blaine, I'm promoting you now, and
go. Oh,
then
Blaine's doing.
Doug, I'll take you off.
If I could stay on just for support.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. For the record, Blaine Peterson, RTC Project Manager on the 4th and Woodland Roundabout project. Is my presentation showing?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so as I said, 4th and Woodland Roundabout project. Sorry, turn that on. The project purpose was to improve safety and operations at the intersection of West 4th Street and Woodland and West 4th Street and Mesa Park. Presentation explains the project development process, project features, and provides supporting information for the project. Additional information is at the website you see here. We developed that several months ago to provide information to everybody about the project. The website also includes virtual representations of various movements and links to educational material regarding modern roundabouts. So the project need, as many of you probably know, there are a lot of intersection conflicts with the two closely spaced intersections, Woodland to the south and Mesa Park to the north. And this is 4th Street. There are high speeds on 4th Street. The speed limit is 50 miles an hour. We also wanted to address access management. The existing driveways are quite wide and have introduced too many areas where vehicles can enter the roadway. Mesa Park configuration, the acute angle of the roadway makes it difficult to turn onto 4th Street, especially during peak traffic periods. Also needed to increase overall operational and safety improvements. And the project required coordination between NDOT, City of Reno, and Washoe County, who all own portions of roadways surrounding the project. Woodland to the south is City of Reno, Mesa Park Road to the north is Washoe County, and of course 4th Street is NDOT. Several other options were studied, including 2 roundabouts, which was cost prohibitive due to the steep slopes surrounding 4th Street in this area. 2 traffic signals were also considered. It is quite complicated to have 2 traffic signals at offset intersections such as these. So in 2019, we did a intersection control evaluation, and these are the study recommendations. As I said, to limit access on the 4th Street to reduce conflict points for entering vehicles. Also to provide bicycle and pedestrian facilities within the project limits. And the roundabout will provide traffic calming geometry to reduce speeds on 4th Street for entering vehicles. The roundabout provides design that accommodates truck traffic as well as emergency response vehicles. Movements were modeled via computer simulation and can also be seen on the project website, which I provided the link earlier. Project will also include roadway lighting, specifically for conflict areas, including pedestrian and bicycles. NDOT also requested that minimal maintenance landscaping be installed to avoid long-term maintenance. We also had to acquire right-of-way on the corners of Woodland to fit the project in. As you can see, this is the preferred design concept. The darker areas will be asphalt pavement, including the circulating road in the roundabout. There'll be a 8-foot multi-use path on the north and south sides, providing a pathway for bicycles if they're not comfortable riding through the roundabout, as well as pedestrians. And we're connecting to the one existing piece of sidewalk to the east. So we're installing that within our project limits. We unfortunately couldn't do it through the entire corridor. The red area in the center is a mountable truck apron for those larger vehicles. Our design vehicle was a interstate truck, so that can make it around the roundabout. And the Mesa Park roadway, the design vehicle, was the City of Reno mid-aerial fire engine. So that we widened the radius here and then pushed the actual intersection more to the south so that those vehicles could make that turn. Center median islands will be concrete. We're also installing a 15-foot retaining wall to give us more room to install the roundabout, and installing guardrail on the north side of that retaining wall to provide extra safety for traffic coming down Mesa Park Road. This shows where vehicles coming down Mesa Park will have to go. The folks coming down and wishing to travel west will continue on as they have. Folks who want to travel east towards downtown Reno will have to come through the roundabout, which would be about 100 feet away from the existing Mesa Park, go around the circulation and head back into town. We also had to consider the railroad, which is fairly close to the south on Woodland, and make sure that the queues, when a train is there, sometimes a train can be there for up to 5 minutes. The queues don't clog up the roundabout. We're going to install a second southbound lane, which will allow the traffic to store there. And then it'll clear out fairly quickly, about 5 minutes after the train has left. Some of the benefits of a roundabout: they reduce crashes by 30%. As you can see in the diagram, there are fewer conflict areas, and the crash severities, while they're less, there's still some sideswipe collisions when folks don't yield to the circulating vehicles. Roundabouts also reduce delay instead of idling at an intersection, which will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. No one will be idling at the intersection unless, as I mentioned, the train has gone through and have to wait until that clears. It reduces operations and maintenance costs. Eliminates costs associated with traffic signals, the power, although there will still be street lighting. There's retiming and operation costs with traffic signals and equipment replacement costs as well. Roundabouts also increase pedestrian safety. It reduces the time at risk for pedestrians. They only have to look in one direction at a time as they cross, and enhances aesthetics. While we're not installing landscaping, we will be putting in low maintenance decorative rock, and the retaining wall will have a boulder-like finish. Project schedule. The project is currently being advertised for construction bids. I anticipate bid opening May 3rd with the start of construction June 6th. It's an 85 working day contract, so construction should be complete around October of this year. And that's it. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any board questions? But
Yeah, it's a terrible intersection, but just a question. When someone comes down off of Mesa Park and they want to go east, they have to go west and come around. Will there be a blockage there so that people can't come down Mesa Park and go across to the east? Up
Yes.
there?
Sorry.
Yeah, I can just about guarantee you that there will be some people, if they can do it, will skip the roundabout and they'll head directly east, unless that path is blocked to them. Do you understand?
As you can see, there's a median that will be installed.
Yeah.
But
They're gonna do it. There's no way to stop them because you got to turn left on Mason Park to get up Mason Park, right? So you have to have that opening there. So they're gonna do it.
That opening should be far enough that it's not easy for them to get around.
They'll do it.
Tell by that angle right there on the other island on the other side, that they're specifically trying to prevent that.
Right, as you can see, we have the median on Mesa Park as well as 4th Street. So while it's still possible, we're hoping to discourage that movement.
yeah, it'll probably take some policing.
Any other board questions?
My question is snow removal. Where are they going to stick all the snow that's going to get stuck in there?
This is an NDOT maintained roadway, so they will be responsible for the maintenance throughout the roundabout. They'll clear the roundabout and then go past the roundabout where the shoulders are currently open. So my thought is that they will just put snow where they put snow currently.
Any other board questions? I have a question. So during the 85-day construction schedule, that's the height of summer, and I ride my bike 3 times a week, from Collin Ranch out to Bird Eye. And I go through this intersection. My wife goes up Mesa Park and climbs the hills. So during the construction, is there still going to be a rideable asphalt area? Or are you going to turn this to dirt? How does this, what's the plan here?
The plan is to maintain 2-way traffic as well as access to Woodland and Mesa Park. The contractor will be required to work on one side of the roundabout at a time. It's not going to be a dirt path, as you said. There will be asphalt there.
Because I know this is heavily used by bicycles, heavily. I bet there's a few hundred a day probably that go through there on a weekend. I just want to make sure that we still can ride it.
Yes, hopefully in the future, the multi-use path will encourage more bicyclists, including, folks that aren't quite comfortable going on a 50-mile-per-hour roadway.
It's kind of like the one you have at 4th and Sierra Island, it was Del Webb Parkway, right? Because it has that path, it has that wide asphalt path. And you could get up on the sidewalk. I'm daring. Any other audience questions here? Do we have anybody online that has questions?
I don't see any hands raised.
All right, thank you for the presentation. I'm not looking forward to the construction, but
Thank you, Blaine
Thanks, Blaine and Doug.
and Doug.
all right. Now I'm gonna move on to item B,
Now,
development project. So we're gonna skip item B51. Item B52, Nevada Museum of Art expansion.
who's presenting that?
Let me text my people that make sure that they get on. They're not already. They can be by
Could you remind me who they would be?
Amy Opio and Ed Thomas.
I see Ed Thomas.
Okay, and I need to text Amy. I know she had another one.
Do you want me to promote him so he can
Yes.
speak?
Yeah. Okay, that'll be a surprise to Amy. And my prognosticating skills on about what time we get up got thrown way off tonight.
What's your reference?
I thought we'd be much later.
I think that'll work. We'll give it a shot.
Should I wait for everyone to come back, or are you guys on a break, or should I start going?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We still have a quorum.
Okay. Well, good evening. For the record, my name is Dave Snell. I'm planning and right-of-way manager of the CFA, working on this project with Loomis Engineering and the Nevada Museum of Art. Loomis is working on all the engineering, and we have some fine architects who've been working on this. Actually, the original architect who
worked on the original building is doing the expansion of this. Let's see. There we go. So the property is located, it entails 3 parcels. The main parcel is where the existing Nevada Museum of Art building sits. That actually fronts up onto Liberty Street. And then we've got 2 more parcels that the Nevada Museum of Art owns that actually are adjacent to California Avenue on the south. The total acreage in association with all 3 parcels is 1.79 acres. This isn't moving forward very easily. Here we go. What we've submitted is a major site plan review, which is very similar. For years, we use special use permits. It gets treated very similar to a special use permit. It'll go to Planning Commission for its review. The primary items that trip us into a major site plan review are heights greater than 45 feet and an expansion of an existing use of greater than 20,000 square feet. So the proposed expansion is shown at 55 feet. I will point out, and we have some building elevations that I go through the presentation that identify that the expanded building is shorter than the existing building, but it still goes over that limit in the zone that we're in. And then the expansion of, there's a 50,000 square foot. There's a 50,000 square foot expansion on the south side of the building. There is about 5,000 square feet that's associated with the restaurant, 45,000 square feet at the south that will be part of the project. Can you go back 1 second to finish up? We've been meeting with the city staff. We went out to a site visit with them. There is what's called, this is kind of a new one in the new code, the alternative equivalent compliance. We'll be adding that to the application. What this addresses is the street scene and the sidewalk parkway planter type issues along the Hill Street and Liberty Street frontages. You move to the next slide, please. So the property's master plan, downtown mixed use. This is the most intense of the 3 mixed use categories, and there are a variety of different uses in this downtown area. I underlie a couple of pertinent parts there. It includes a diverse mix of uses, and arts and entertainment really come into play more with this property, especially the arts. Next slide, please. So the property is zoned is in the association with its master plans, downtown mixed use. This is in the Riverwalk district. Next slide, please. So these are pictures of the existing site. The ones on the top, those are from the northeast and northwest corners. And I want to point out the sidewalk along Liberty. You're looking at Liberty Street, and then you're looking downhill. There's an existing 6-foot sidewalk there. Actually, I think it's a little bit wider on Liberty. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to move back. Typically speaking, in this area, you have a parkway planter, then a sidewalk behind that. This is that alternative equivalent compliance that we're submitting for relative to the sidewalk. To have them tear up the sidewalk when we've got a public plaza directly adjacent to it that provides additional space, we feel that we're really meeting the intent of the code and the intent of providing a little bit more space, a little bit more nicety along the street scene. So combined with the public plaza area that already exists and that will be enhanced and modified and enhanced with the expansion, we feel that ripping up that sideway and the cost associated with that might be a little bit more than is really necessary. The pictures on the bottom end, there's a south, you have the southwest, and then the one on the right is the southeast. Now, the mansion that was mentioned by Nancy Gilbert during the public comment, that is the picture of the blue building. That in all the times that I've been meeting with the Nevada Museum of Art, Amy, she's mentioned, yes, we want to get that moved to an appropriate location. So I know a lot of work's gone on in the past over that. I was texting her after your comment. She asked if it was Nancy, and I found out that yes, it was you. So I was very happy to hear that those conversations are still going on. And yeah, the intention is that end up being available for somebody to move and for that to be safe with this project. Next slide, please. This is the area, the overall area, the red area or light red area. That's your existing site, and then to the south. This is turned a little bit differently than north-south. North is actually to the left. Next slide, please. This is our phasing map, and this is the area in which work will be done. I mentioned previously that the public plaza area along Liberty and Hill Street, that would get an overhaul and a change. They're actually working with a project called Fallen Fruit, and in the strip there where the red rectangle is phase one. It's kind of an angled strip where it's got a little arc to it. That's actually going to be, I think there's 20 to 24 trees that'll go in there. These are all going to be fruit-bearing trees. They'll probably be more of a dwarf size. They might get 12 to 15 feet tall, but they will actually be fruit-bearing that people can eat. I understand that there will be growing vines that will be producing fruit as well. This is something, and Amy hopefully will end up getting online. Did she jump online? Amy knows more about this than I do by light years. So if there's questions on that or more information that you want on that, she jumps online, we can get that additional information. Over on the right-hand side of the screen, the blue area, that is the area where the two buildings exist, one of those being the mansion building. That's where the primary expansion area will be. That'll be 45,000 square feet of expansion. There is a little bit up in the alley. What we're going to be doing with the alley between phases 1 and 2, we're going to have some HVAC equipment that is in the future going to get placed on the roof of the phase 2 building, but we need it for some of the uses that are going to be going in and changing around within the existing building. So that will be located off of the alley and will be screened appropriately to meet city standards. There is, and I think I've got a picture here. I'm going to point to it on the screen. I apologize to everybody online. This doesn't show up as well. This area here will be an expansion to the existing restaurant space that's in the museum. Next slide, please. This is building elevation. If you could hit one more time. So up on this top one is the east alley, the east elevation, which is along the alley. So you can see where the primary expansion area is. And then hit it again. Actually, hit it 2 more times. Okay, those 2 areas, that one on the left-hand side is smaller. That's the expansion of the restaurant area. This would be from the Hill Street side and use the expansion down to California Avenue. So I pointed out previously that the height of the proposed expansion is shorter than the existing building. You can see that in the elevations that we have here. Next slide, please.
And Amy is on.
Amy's on. Okay. Yeah, if anybody has additional questions, she can cover the Fallen Fruit Plaza area. So we've been working with the City of Reno staff. We went out and did a site visit to go look. Our desire would be to have the school bus parking. What the Nevada Museum of Art serves is a significant portion of the art curriculum. 4th graders come through this. They have over 8,000 students that come through annually from the Washoe County School District, I believe Incline Village, Douglas County, all come to the Nevada Museum of Art. There's usually a couple buses a day. This south wing is going to be the Education and Resource Center. So that is going to be the primary entry spot for the school-age children. Our desire initially was to park the buses along California Avenue. However, that is an arterial street. So we have found out that the school district has a policy and a requirement that the arms go out, the flashers go up, and everything has to stop on a 10,000 average daily trip road. That's not as desirable. So we're living and learning as we go through this. We went out, met with the staff. It looks more likely that we'll probably end up getting our bus parking area on Hill Street, which is not an arterial, much less heavily traveled, a little bit farther away from the entry. But those yellow lines that are down the bottom, and one of them actually goes off the page because I think we're going to have to park one bus more towards the corner and then one bus a little bit farther up. But the students would come down and around California Avenue to that new southern entry location. Next slide, please. This is On the top, you see the existing aerial map, which shows the two buildings on the south side of the site, which is on the right side of the picture. And the existing building. This shows what the plaza looks like right now. If you can go ahead and hit one time. Okay, so this circular area here, this yellow circle, that is the enhanced plaza and modified plaza. That's where the fallen fruit exhibit will be in the plaza. Hit again. This area on top, it's kind of hard to see. You think that may be ground level. That's actually a third floor rooftop garden area that'll be accessed from inside the building. And then hit one more time. There are currently 4 trees out along California Avenue. One of them's got quite a lean to it. We'll be meeting with the urban forester, with Matt Basil over about these trees. We're trying to get a meeting. He's incredibly busy right now, so trying to get onto a schedule. We'll be adding 2 more trees. One of the things that we'll have to do to move the mansion out is to come out California Avenue. That means those trees are going to have to get removed and then they'll get replanted.
Only one.
Only one?
We only asked for one.
Oh, really? You can get it out with only getting rid of one?
We only need this tree.
And the whole building can come out with that tree being
We're
removed?
cutting it in half.
All right, we will disturb as few trees as possible.
Sorry.
That's all right. It's a big topic now. It's a big issue now, and
We already
especially.
wrote to Jim already and told him which tree and marked it and took pictures.
Great. Okay, I stand corrected. Next slide, please. So we believe that this project brings a lot of positives to the community by doubling the capacity to serve pre-K through 12th grade students, and enhances resources and research availability for educators participating in professional development scholars undertaking academic research. There's a good sized library that will be added to the museum within this expansion area, and feel that that's a tremendous asset that's not here now. Be improving and enhancing the existing public plaza area, and we'll be enhancing the available gallery space to display more of the art from the museum's permanent collections so that the art can be enjoyed by the entire community. Next slide, which is basically my ask for questions. We have asked for 5 years on the approval, typically speaking. Site plan reviews, conditional use permits, get 18 months approval. Because this is a capital fundraising project, they have the money to do phase 1. They have some of the money committed to do phase 2. I have no idea what's going to happen with the economy in the next week, 2 months, year, 3 years. We're hopeful that things move forward. They've got $8 million for the first phase and $40 million that they need for the second phase. And that's a big lift for a nonprofit. So we're asking for additional time. I want to make sure that you're aware of that. There, I believe, are good reasons. I work on a lot of different projects, and this is one that kind of merits more time because of what it is and what it means to the community. With that, I'll close my presentation and be available for any questions. Yeah.
Questions.
Oh, sorry. Board members.
Yeah, putting fruit trees in a public space like that seems to be different.
It is different. It's urban gardens and things like that. And Jenny's probably dealt with some. I've heard the idea come along more and more in terms of having actual live fruit, edible fruit out and available in urban settings more and more frequently. This is the first time I've dealt with it in 30+ years of planning. So it's an interesting concept. Is Amy online now?
Yes.
Okay, Amy can probably answer more questions relative to the fallen fruit plantings that will be done. Amy, why don't you take?
Thank you so much, Dave. My name is Amy Opio. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and Deputy Director for the Nevada Museum of Art. I've been with the museum for the last 30 years, and I'm very proud to be here with Dave tonight to present this expansion project. The Fallen Fruit project that Dave has referenced is a project from an artist duo. One of the artists did grow up here in Reno, Nevada, and is from an old ranching family. And he's partnered with another gentleman from Los Angeles, and together they make up Fallen Fruit. They've done many commissions all over the world. This particular commission is called Monument to Sharing, and it is a project based on the idea of old established neighborhoods in large cities, and how many times those established neighborhoods had fruit trees, and the fruit trees sometimes border sidewalks or neighboring properties, and many times those fruits are shared among neighbors and friends. And so the trees that will be planted, I believe there are 16 to 18 altogether. They will be dwarf species of fruit trees, specifically planted so that the neighborhood could share the fruit. They will extend their outreach to the communities around the museum. And as you know, we are bordering we border or surrounded by many of the neighborhoods in the community that were established many years ago and that have established fruit trees. So it's an idea that takes place to kind of bring people together to share fruit, to share fallen fruit, and to take what you need and leave what you do not need so that you can share it with your neighbor or another person who might be walking through the community at the time. A full orchard. There are also, I think, 3 to 5 grapes planned to be on a trellis on the wall behind our Butterfield horse. And there will be a small herb garden that may service the restaurant for the museum.
Thank you. Other board questions? Audience questions?
Carla has a question that she wrote.
She wrote it down.
Does the NMA own that land with the 2 houses?
Yes, they do.
But
Yeah, I'm curious, with the expansion, I see you're going on to some parking areas. I'm wondering how you're gonna deal with additional parking and in particular ADA parking.
The site, current site has ADA parking already established. I believe it still meets the ADA standards even after the expansion. If it doesn't, we've got room to expand. Within the downtown area, there actually is no parking requirement. We've got some additional parking that will be added along the alley with the project. But most of the parking that they have on the site, they do have, Amy can answer this, you have access or lease rights over to the parking areas that are south of the old Porsche building?
Actually, we just purchased one of those lots that is located behind the Porsche building. So we'll be able to, I think we're adding more than 24 additional spots with the expansion to the museum's current parking of, I think it's around 20 as well. It might be more than that. I'd have to double check. So we're doubling the parking on the lot itself.
And I'm sorry, adding additional ADA parking as well.
Yes, once we get into that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the comments might have come out of, like, we have the bus parking, we're anticipating that that'll be established as a loading zone. And it may just be Monday through Friday from like 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's when the buses, they come and drop off kids and they usually have to leave and go park somewhere else. And then they come back and pick up again. That would end up leaving the parking available to everyone in a limited capability from 9 to 1, but then it opens wide up. That was one of the conversations we had with the city staff, was basically assigning parking that's on the public right of way to a use that they couldn't really do that. So we thought the loading zone might be the best way to go.
Sure.
Remind me again, what is phase 1 entitled covered?
Phase 1 basically entails an expansion to the restaurant area. There will be some administrative space that goes above it, and they're going to be shifting a lot of the uses around internal. But the exterior improvements that you're going to see are going to be the plaza area that's on the existing site, the new restaurant expanding out from the building, and then on the alley side, we've got the HVAC equipment that'll be added. That's phase 1 of the project. Phase 2 is when the 2 buildings that are there off of California that hopefully the mansion gets moved, and the other one, if it can get reused by somebody, we'd be happy to see that one get reused somewhere. But right now, by talking to Amy, it doesn't sound like they have anyone yet. There may be somebody at some point in the future that those get moved off, and then the expansion down towards the south will come up.
Since you're really improving the look and the livability of the exterior plaza there, it seemed kind of unusual that the restaurant expansion is just enclosed and kind of a hard wall.
I'm not sure what that interior space is to be. It's supposed to be kind of secluded rather than, a lot of times you'll see like a glass window and you can see in, and apparently what the architect was going for there in terms of the restaurant space and what the restaurateur is looking for is something that ends up being a little bit more intimate and fancy than having everyone look at you from the outside. They had a vision for it. So.
Do you intend to proceed with phase one before you're funded for phase two?
I'll let Amy answer that. Did you hear the question, Amy?
Yes, the entire project is $60 million. We're more than halfway there, both with cash commitments and with pledge commitments. This summer, we will announce the capital campaign to the community. But we do have phase one completely paid for. And the reason for the phasing is really just to allow the museum to move the administrative staff out into the Hill Street house that Nancy, and hello Nancy, and thank you for being here tonight, that Nancy will be ultimately taking. Our staff will be habitating that house while our administrative floor is being remodeled. And then we will move back into the museum, and then Nancy will move the house. So the true reason for the phasing is only so that we can help our staff move safely through the first portion of the expansion, as well as our art collection. We need to move that art collection safely from one side of the building to the other and keep it in a HVAC controlled environment that is also secure per the museum's needs for art handling and storage.
Other questions?
I want to say, I understand Nancy has a proposal into the city that would ultimately make the city council with a manager recommendation to have the relocation be to 0 Riverside. That's the proposal that's in, and just that's been a property that's been on this board's focus for a lot of years. Yeah.
Any other questions, audience? Do you have anybody on the, I don't see any hands up? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move on to item C, board commission committee member reports and announcements. Go ahead. Hearing none, let's move on to future agenda items. That's item B.
I would like to have the Rosewood Canyon come back as an item. Okay. And Nick, maybe the Pisani, I can't remember if it's Pisani or Pisano. Lich Court renaming issue also. There's time before it goes to council, I'd like that. Pisani paint or Pisani paint?
Fasani.
It's Pisani? Okay.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Future agenda items. So let's move on to item B. Public comment.
Any public comments?
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on in Reno these days. I just want to put a pitch out there for a little bit of love for Keystone Avenue. It really needs, I think, bike lanes and some dressing up from Fifth down at least to First.
Thank you. Maybe we could have that as a future item, because RTC did do a study on Keystone Avenue about 7 or 8 years ago. They've done some of the north on the other side of the freeway, particularly where it departs from Kings Row and West 7th area, but they haven't done anything over here. So maybe we could ask RTC to come back at some future time and ask for the
Yeah.
planning.
Notice they've got the bike lane project that's up at Fifth.
Yeah,
And it just kind of bypasses the main part of Keystone, which is a significant arterial. And it doesn't, it's not very attractive.
I don't know
I'm
how.
not sure if that was public comment or that was future agenda.
For me, it was public comment,
Okay.
but if Jenny wants to make it a future agenda item, I'd be happy to.
that's my comment and her comment.
And how is the neon project gonna affect Keystone?
Yeah, yeah.
That's gonna be a biggie if everybody's gonna have to come off Keystone.
We'll look into that too.
Any other public comment? Anybody else? Nothing?
Nothing.
So our next meeting is May 2.
Shouldn't be May 2nd. Have to look at the calendar.
May 9.
So now we have to move on to everybody's favorite agenda item F. This is adjournment. This is for action.
I move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll work on this.
Thank you all.
Much shorter meeting this time.